Well, Andrew, Basil and Justine, thank you very much. It's brilliant to be with you all this afternoon. I'm a bit of a background about myself. I'm a relatively new MP. I don't know if I can claim that anymore, having been elected in 2019. But before entering Westminster, I worked as a chartered surveyor. So coming at this role very much from the private sector. So hopefully bringing a different skill set to the table. And crikey, sometimes you feel like the role involves a bit of firefighting, and certain weeks have more firefighting involved than others. And I can tell you that this last few weeks have had a lot of fires to be put out. But it is brilliant to be here on behalf of Levelling Up Goals and being here as the parliamentary chair. So what does that role involve for me? Well, of course, it's all about galvanising support amongst other members of Parliament, cross-party, about bringing all MPs together to really work to try and achieve that levelling up agenda. Because this cannot be done just by policymakers bringing forward ideas in Westminster. This has to absolutely be done at a grassroots level, right across all communities, and involving businesses, education sector, to influence policy makers and legislators so that we can absolutely get traction both in Westminster and on the ground. Now, I am the Member of Parliament for Keighley. For those of you that don't know where that is, that's just west of Bradford in West Yorkshire. And if you haven't been, please do come. Because what I want to just illustrate to you is that the levelling up conversation far too often gets pitched, as has already been referenced, as, the North against the South. And it absolutely is not the case. If we're serious about levelling up, we have to be doing that right across the country, because every community, no matter where we are, has its own complexities and own difficulties. Even in my constituency, I have Ilkley, which is average house price of 475,000, and then Keighley at the other end of the spectrum, average house price of 175,000, and that's just within my constituency. And that's when we're starting to look at other areas right across, whether it's in London, Peterborough, or as this report identifies, Ipswich as well, being one of the key areas, coastal towns that we're having to really concentrate on levelling up. So it is absolutely a privilege to be here as the Levelling Up Goals chair to really sort of try and add to that conversation and add to that flavour. Because for me, if we're having a conversation about levelling up, it is about how we rebalance our economies. It is not about simply moving, businesses from London outside to Glasgow, to Manchester, or to Wolverhampton, wherever it is. It is about absolutely how do we make a difference to an individual that is growing up in Keighley, Ipswich, Peterborough, or Southport, that they feel that levelling up agenda working for them as they're going through their daily lives, or that family. Because let's be honest, the last 20 months have illustrated potentially more than what we've all ever experienced for a long time, the deprived communities that we have right across the country, and some of the difficult, more complex challenges that we have, whether it's in the education sector or businesses, to do with the levelling up agenda. The pandemic has most definitely highlighted that. And some of the more challenging situations that we have for young people that are wanting to get involved in businesses. Because when policymakers are making decisions, and really difficult decisions, about having to work at home, and obviously we've got the conversation now coming to the forefront on that in Parliament again this week, it makes it really difficult for a young person, if they're moving on from university and getting involved on a graduate recruitment scheme and wanting to integrate with other colleagues, to get to know one another if you're working from home. And I've had that in my own parliamentary office, and I'm sure all businesses have had that same challenge. And that's where businesses have got a crucial role to play in being aware of those challenges for a young individual, graduate, or whether it's somebody that's more involved down the vocational route, how they get embraced within that business environment when there are added complexities that we've experienced over the last 20 months with COVID-19. And I just want to give a little bit of an illustration, potentially, of what I've been doing within the Levelling Up goal environment on how we can embrace communities, business sectors, education providers in that Levelling Up conversation. And only 3 weeks ago, I held a Levelling Up summit in Keighley, which was all focused on mental health and improving mental health and well-being. And it was a great opportunity. So we had national leaders like Seema Kennedy came along as a previous public health minister, had local head teachers being there, our local NHS providers, and we had a really good conversation open to the public about how businesses, education, healthcare providers can get involved in that conversation around improving mental health and mental well-being provision within the working environment, but also right down at a community level. And there were some really frank and open conversations about that right the way through that session, because what enabled us to try and illustrate was actually talking about mental health, mental well-being within the business environment is sometimes quite difficult. People don't want to have that, address those stigmas and have that open conversation. And young people, particularly, don't want to be frightened about illustrating some of those challenges when they're just getting into the work environment. And I think that's where businesses, using this as a bit of an example, have a real opportunity to be open and frank about having some of those more difficult conversations when young people are coming in. And for me, looking at my constituency, and it's absolutely no different to any of the other constituencies or areas across the UK, the skills agenda is absolutely key to unlocking a lot of the potential. My personal view is that for far too long, national politics has been driven around everyone has got to go to university to try and prove their case, prove their weight within the working environment. And I've seen this time and time again in my constituency, which has many fantastic manufacturing, engineering and tech businesses, that they're struggling to recruit. Because for far too often, everyone has been driven down that you've got to go to university or you have failed. And that is absolutely not the case. We must have much more positive agenda driven by businesses, by politicians, and by the education sector. That actually there is nothing wrong with going down that vocational route to get that qualification to be able to get into the working environment. Because university is not for everybody. And we shouldn't be frightened of saying that. We have an excellent report in front of us. I've read it from cover to cover. It deals with a lot of the challenges that we're all experiencing. And can I just say, as a final point, yes, it is absolutely brilliant to be now on some may say, the dark side of the fence, being a Member of Parliament, having coming at it from the private sector. But whether you're a business, whether you're an MP or involved in the health sector, education sector, we're all here to do the right thing. And, businesses have a crucial role to play because businesses are paying salaries that are supporting families to get on in life. And what I, in my role as being parliamentary chair, is really want to understand how I can help, how MPs can help in driving that Levelling Up agenda. And I really look forward to presenting this report to Michael Gove, now as the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, because this is where we make proper traction on the other side of the bridge in Westminster about getting positive policy driven that works practically on the ground. So thank you very much.